I would like to tell you about what socialism means to me. And the issue is that my family, my whole family, is a working class family, and my grandparents were at the alphabetism campaign at the beginning of the revolution. My mother is a philosophy teacher, a communist philosophy teacher, and my father is a military person. So all the values that these persons raised me under are just the values of justice, the values of solidarity, the values of empathy. So those values are only related to socialism and only possible under socialism. So for what should I fight if it's not socialism?
Viva, viva, viva socialista. Abajo el bloqueo. Abajo el bloqueo.
We are welcoming you to our hospital, and it's very nice to have you here. And you may feel free to ask whatever you want. We also have around some wards of the hospital.
Este ha sido un año difícil para nosotros con una movilidad muy elevada.
It's been a difficult year with a lot of patients here within the intensive care.
Donde nos golpeó mucho, sobre todo lo que nos está golpeando es el déficit de insumos.
And they are working hard with those patients, mainly because sometimes they don't have the equipment they require to give them all the things the patient needs.
No es secreto que el bloqueo nos afecta mucho. Al país se le dificulta comprar.
It's difficult because of the blockade is enforced, and now it's with every day coming more difficult to get those equipment.
Para comprar catéter, recibimos niños muy pequeñitos.
They have very small babies who require particular IV cannulas or catheters, and they don't have it. We have a lot of patients with complicated pneumonia. They require sometimes to be ventilated, and they are using, our ventilators are still working, but they are old.
Que Cuba ha sido penalizada por el bloqueo y no nos permite comprar en el mercado internacional los repuestos.
For example, the equipment they have now don't have a device which is called humidifier. They don't have it, and they need it. Yeah, what she's saying is that in order to buy all those equipment, Cuba must go to a third or a fourth country in order to buy it, and prices goes up. So even with the lack of those things we have with our doctors, which are very good, not myself, they managed to compare themselves with the first world results.
Haciendo es esfuerzo puramente del médico y del enfermero. Los médicos y los enfermeros estamos ganando más del 500%.
Nurses and doctors are giving not the 100%, they are giving the 500% they can. They were getting. Once we go abroad, we see these. A lot of equipment, a lot of medicine, a lot of things, less time with patients.
Yeah.
And we are against it.
That's how it is.
We need that equipment, but first, stay with the patient, do things with the patient, do as much as you can, and use the equipment. It's a good thing that our health system rules all the severely ill patients must be discussed regularly with all the doctor's staff. So it implicates not only the physician in charge, it implicates all specialties, professors, people with experience. So once you see a very severe patient like the one we showed you, it's being discussed more than 10, 15 times within his admission. It strengthens the diagnosis, and it also reduces the prescriptions for patients, because sometimes people without experience used to prescribe a lot of drugs. The Ministry of Health have contracts with developing countries in order to take Cuban specialists to those countries, work there, and go back to Cuba. And you'll find Cuban doctors working with the Cuban government in Africa or many countries in Latin America. And those doctors, at the same time they are reimbursed themselves, they bring money to the Ministry of Health, and that money will go to buy all the things we have.
Senesex is a really cool organization. It works on policy to do with women's liberation and LGBTQ plus liberation.
Es tan importante que articulemos mejor las campañas que hagamos para generar conciencia y transformar la cultura de nuestro pueblo para que no se sigan reproduciendo las diferentes formas de violencia.
They work with the ministries of health and education to improve the lives of women and LGBTQ plus people, developing the family code, or the new version of the family code that was approved by the Cuban people in 2022, which legalizes gay marriage and gay adoption and ensures equal share of domestic labor in the home between men and women, and increases rights of grandparents and of children. It's the opposite of what the British state does, which aims to divide the working class along gender lines, along sexuality lines. The Cuban state cares only about empowering all sections of the working class, which is why it also seeks to empower LGBTQ plus people and women. We told them about these guidelines that the British government are currently trying to push through for schools, where they're saying schools shouldn't have toilet facilities for trans students, and they shouldn't, they should have sport strictly delineated along binary gender lines. So basically make life as difficult as possible for trans children, trans young people, and make it so that they're not allowed to use their preferred pronouns at school without the parents being told. And the people at Senesex were visibly shocked by this, because this is so contrary to how the Cuban socialist state works, which seeks to unite the working class and empower members of society, empower young people. And, obviously Britain's guidelines, they may or may not go through, but it's mainly about generating hate and whipping up a culture war in the media, and distracting from the failings of capitalism, the fact that it can't provide for the needs of the working class.
They spoke about the impacts of the blockade in several ways, but the one that stood out to me the most was the limited access to contraception and the impact it's having on both men and women. So one of the people, the head of the International Relations Department, mentioned that the limited access to condoms has led to a spike in HIV cases, which the country is obviously combating, which is equally hard with the limited access to medication at the moment. But also they were speaking about the increase in teenage pregnancies due to the lack of the pill, the implant, things like that. But they'll continue to work with social consciousness and overcoming the blockade through providing the centre, what Senesex is, a centre to support women, LGBTQ people, and to provide general education about sexual health.
Socialist Cuba, it's not so much about, they don't recognise any particular rights of trans people or LGBTQ plus people or women, but they recognise their rights as workers, as people, to have access to healthcare and education and employment and housing. And that's why Socialist Cuba has the policies that it has.
The 2021 protests, right? How they were counter-revolutionary protests. From what we understand, they happen in certain neighborhoods that were facing certain difficulties. We want to understand how the neighborhood transformation projects have addressed those concerns.
Ayudaron un grupo de condiciones objetivas y materiales que cambian la comunidad. No se puede trabajar todas a la misma vez, por lo tanto se ha decidido trabajar en lo más común, en lo que es para todo el mundo. Y a partir de ahí como programa teniendo en cuenta las condiciones, poder trabajar entonces en las particularidades de cada una de las familias o de los problemas que tiene cada familia. Como por ejemplo, una madre vulnerable con más de 3 hijos, que puede ser atendida particularmente si tiene un tema de vivienda, pero a la misma vez también se beneficia, por ejemplo, del coeficiente médico, de la escuela o del círculo infantil. Se está trabajando también con los jóvenes, por ejemplo, que no tienen vínculo laboral, ¿no? Y de alguna medida también se pueden estar interesados en incorporarse o en estudiar, y sobre esos temas también muy tratando de buscar las causas. Y lo otro que se hace es mantener una comunicación permanente con el mismo partido y el resto de las organizaciones. Y la participación, como les expliqué inicialmente, lo que se trata es de que entre todos encontremos soluciones, y en ese propio mecanismo de estar constantemente intercambiando con la gente, te da la posibilidad entonces de saber dónde está el problema, qué hicimos mal, qué no está bien, cómo rectificarlo.
We condemn in the most energetic terms the genocide of Israel. You studied in Cuba representing Palestine, and we will be with you so that you can fulfill your dreams, and in the future you can support your country more. This is not a war against the 2.2 million Palestinians living in the Gaza Strip, nor against the Palestinian people in general. This is a war against humanity, against human rights, against the collective consciousness, against the values and principles of civilizations, against morality.
Here in Cuba, from my experience, we have lived a lot of protests, solidarity protests, together with our government, with the Palestinian ambassador in Cuba, singers, actors, artists, the strong tie, the strong sense of solidarity that there is between Cuba and Palestine. Because the Palestinian cause is a just cause that must be recognized by all states around the world and by all persons around the world. And these persons and these states that are fighting against the Israeli genocide, that are fighting because of the genocide of the Palestinian people, must be heard and must be taken into account.
Today we visited San Rafael Nursing Clinic in Artemisa province. We got to speak with many residents, many staff. There's actually 53 staff at the care home to its 50 residents. We really tried to make the link between care for the elderly in Britain and care for the elderly in Cuba. And my one leading the way and really puts human need first under socialist Cuba. And my one under capitalist Britain, of course, has elderly dying in their thousands all through the pandemic. They were really touched that people would actually come over and share their experiences, but also at the actual amount of deaths in care, at the actual amount of low-paid workers in the sector in Britain, and they seemed quite shocked. And we also got to have one quite unique experience of a man who was born before the revolution and remembered life before the revolution, and understood fully that everything that Cubans had was down to the revolution, their socialist development.
With Llorente Rebelde, we met the editor of the newspaper that caters towards the youth, their interests, their struggle, and involves them within the Cuban Revolution and the Cuban Revolutionary Program. We learned how young people are central towards continuing the ideas of socialism. We learned about the combating of so-called fake news, the effects of the blockade, both ideologically and materially, on young people in particular. Llorente Rebelde's website and social presences within Cuba for Cuban people are much more important. It helps them counter the subversive actions of US imperialist forces online, and it helps them overcome things like paper shortages and shortages created by the blockade.
How has the blockade impacted you both?
The school materials sometimes very difficult for the government to get all the implements we need to get education because of the blockade, because we live in Cuba. In every brigade you have with the institute, we do meetings every month. It's usually on Thursday or Mondays. We used to do it during the semester, like debates about the political situation in Cuba and in the whole world, and what actions we can do to improve, to impact in the political situation of the country. We talk about how we could improve the activities, how to be better communist militant, and we organize volunteer works. For us, socialism means justice and means a way of life where you can develop all your skills and equality with all the people in the society. You have you can become the person you want with all your rights, with all your capabilities. Socialist has meant for us, for our parents, for our grandparents, the ideal they fought for. And it's basically the model and the society we want to live in and we want to let our kids.
Socialista!